Hello and welcome back to I Think I'm Human Too. I need to get a little more comfortable. I just sat down. My name's Catherine. If you are new here, welcome. I just got back into podcasting literally last week. We talked about that all in episode 1. So a couple of things. I just switched from my slippers because my uncle who watches this, he is so funny. But he was like, get rid of those slippers, Catherine. Like, those are so bad. And I'm like, I love the slippers. So I'm not getting rid of them permanently. But today, just to appease him, I did put on some Uggs. If you're listening on a podcast platform, you're probably like, what are you talking about? But I have these cowboy slippers that I wear, and I love them. I actually wear them every single second of every single day. They are really run down and gross, but that's okay. So yeah, my uncle is listening. He listens every week, which is kind of bittersweet because my dad used to listen. Even though I'd only gotten a couple episodes out, my dad was like, when's the next podcast coming out, Catherine? And he's like, I'm waiting. And then he lost his life a couple days later. So just a very, very full circle moment because as soon as my dad had passed, that uncle was kind of the one that stepped up into the role of my dad, which is kind of an odd thing because I don't know, it's so weird when like you lose someone and then someone else kind of tries to fill their role, not in a replacement way, but in a, hey, I'm here for you if you need a dad role. And it was just so odd because I'm like, wow, like, I turned so quickly to my uncle of like, help, what do I do? Like, I don't have a dad. What do I do? And then it kind of has dwindled a little bit of realizing I can't really, not that I can't call, but I started to realize I'm like, he has his own kids and his own life and his own stressors. And I didn't want him to take on the role of being another person's dad. So I love him so much. He is an amazing human. My husband and I are really close with my aunt and uncle. And so, hey, if you're watching. So today the girls and Raphael are home. Every time I say the girls, people are like, you guys have kids? No, we have 2 dogs, Hadley and Ebby. They are our children basically, but we do call them the girls. We're like, girls, what are you girls doing? But they are home today. So if you hear them or Raphael, it is what it is. I've said that before on my podcast before I took the break after my dad passed. I had said, this is real life. I want this to feel kind of like a little bit of a therapy session of the whole point and why I wanted to start podcasting was to talk about stuff that isn't talked about. And obviously, it's very uncomfortable because I'm putting out my real raw emotions. I'm putting out real raw life stories and things that have happened to me, which is extremely uncomfortable, especially because I never know who's watching. And it's one of those things where it's just an uncomfortable vulnerability. But that comes with sometimes my dogs are home. Sometimes my husband's home. Sometimes you're going to hear something in the background and I'm not going to edit it out because that's just real life. I didn't do my hair today because I was like, this is real life. I just don't care. And today, Raphael, I if you can see on camera, I don't know if you can see, but I get laser hair removal. And I know this is so like my ADHD just went skirt squirrel. I get laser hair removal and I've been self-tanning, but since my appointment's coming up, I can't self-tan right now. So I'm like letting it all kind of fade away. But my chin, if you can see it, I don't know if you can, but my chin looks like, what is that? Leprosy, where the skin is just so, I literally look like a leopard. I know leprosy is a real skin disease and I'm not trying to be harmful to anyone that has it, but if you know what it looks like, it's that, I got that down my chin. So that's hot. But I kind of like that. I like that I get on camera. And if you follow me on TikTok, you know, or even on Instagram, I post all the time with nothing, no makeup on, nothing. Like I do not care. I will post. If I have something to say, I post it and I don't care. And it's funny because my dad used to say to me, he was like, I think that's so hilarious and comical to me because when you get online, so many people expect to see these perfectly made up women, like with makeup done, their hair done, their outfits are nice. And I was like, yeah, but I like just being me. I don't want to feel uncomfortable. Anytime if I go to the grocery store and I don't have makeup on, like followers, if they say hi, they know what they're getting because they've seen me without makeup. They've seen me at 10 o'clock at night in bed with my face all oiled up, but that's the human behind the screen. And that's why I named that this. I do want to kind of just jump into a couple different things. It's something I need to say is it's very hard when there's a lot of things I really, really want to talk about because I think a lot of people suffer in silence thinking that there's not a lot of people that are in their corner. And we actually just went to church on Sunday. Sunday marked my dad's 6 months of him being gone, which just even saying that is still just so mind-blowing to me. You think after I've said it 20 different times that it would hit, but it doesn't. But I went to church, right? Because my dad was a very grounded in faith man. He loved God. He loved being a Catholic. It was just his thing. I don't want to say that we're not religious, because my husband and I definitely are religious, but we're not that couple that goes to church every weekend. And there's a lot of things in the Catholicism religion, or the Catholic religion, the Catholic Church, that I don't necessarily believe in. Not that I don't agree with everything, but it's just a couple things that I just don't agree with. So, but it was kind of refreshing to go back to church now. And I don't know if you've been to church in a while, things are so different. And it's actually really refreshing to see, especially I was raised as a Catholic, and now the older I've gotten, again, like I said, I don't believe in a lot of things that they believe in anymore. Or I question a lot. And I think everyone in their early 20s, or I'm in my late 20s now, holy shit. But I think you just question a lot of things that you've been taught your whole life. And that's just a normal thing. That's not even just religion. That's absolutely everything in life. You just question things because it's really where you're finding yourself. And it's very normal to question God. And especially, like, my dad dies. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm only 26 years old. Why did he just die? Like, you question a lot. And where I was going with that is I went to church. The last time I had gone was his funeral. And that's obviously not a normal mass, obviously. But this last weekend when we had went, I was sitting there, and it was so different. It was like they weren't reading a scripture. That's how it used to be as a kid. They would read basically straight from the Bible and kind of translate it and say, like, this is what it means. And you're just sitting there like, okay. And as a kid, you don't really realize like how much real life that can transfer into, because you just don't understand. But where I was going with this is they're talking about social media. And I'm like, at the Catholic Church, I was like, there's no way in hell. And sorry. And then they started talking about social media and loneliness in young adults. And I'm just sitting here like, holy crap, this is a whole new world. But the fact that it's even being brought up in a religious setting, saying things are different now. Social media is beautiful in so many ways, but it also can be very evil. There's a lot of loneliness out there. They were even talking about the suicide rates and people that have considered and or tried to take their own life. And to me, I was just like, 10 years ago, if you were to have told me that was being spoken about at my dad's favorite church, I would be like, there's no way. Like, because I think Catholics have that thing of, and I don't believe this 100%, but I do know where people say this. And I'm saying Catholics in general just because that's what the religion that I know. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful, and I'm sure it's across many boards, but they call it the sweep under the rug. A lot of Catholics, in my eyes, growing up, have been talked about. They don't want to acknowledge that there's a problem. They just want to like sweep it under the rug. And I'm just speaking very vaguely. Again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anyone's religion. And again, that's my family's religion. So I'm sure a couple people in my family, if they're listening, they're like, shut up, Catherine. But it's real life. And it's scary, but I don't want to be that person that constantly just sweeps things under the rug because it doesn't look perfect on my social media page. And that is something that I've always been very, very, very true to. I 110% know I have my own faults. Everybody has their own faults, but I really want to talk about things that are real life things on this platform. And social media, like they said at church, it can be an amazing thing, but it can also be very evil. And I never want to put out there something that makes someone else feel uncomfortable, less than, or they need to look like, be like, say these things, because absolutely nobody's perfect. I literally just had a meeting with my business manager, not even 10 minutes. I was formatting my camera and he was like, nobody's perfect. And I was like, literally nobody's perfect. And then I started singing Hannah Montana, nobody's perfect. That's been stuck in my head ever since then. So shout out to Santino for that. But where I was going with this is I always want to be real and raw. And sometimes that means that things come out of the woodworks that maybe other people don't want to have exposed. Same with me. Obviously, if there's something out there that someone says about me, I'm like always cautious because I'm like, but if it's true, or if I said something, like I had an abusive ex-boyfriend, right? And I know this, literally my ADHD is like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel right now. But when him and I had split and like stories started to come out, because when you're with an abusive person, we can get into this later, but you protect their actions to the world because you don't want to, whatever. But as soon as the breakup had happened and I started talking about it, he was livid, right? Everyone's going to be livid. And I was like, you're mad at me for exposing your actions, but really it should be that you should be mad at yourself for having those actions. And that can tie into anybody and everybody. If your actions get exposed and they're not good actions, that's not the person, that's not talking shit, that's telling what happened. And I think a lot of times people are like, oh, you're talking shit about me, or this was being said. And it's like, no, this is what happened. If you do not like hearing about your actions, because when there's two parties involved in a situation, say it's me and Raphael, right? And we're getting in a fight. And then I go to social media and he's now listening in on the fight that that I'm talking about, which I have never done that, but we're doing a scenario here. Raphael no longer becomes the second party to the party. He's now becoming a third party, and he's now listening in. And as a third party listening in to Catherine's feelings and the story on that, because there's always two sides to every story, my side, his side, well, three technically, my side, his side, and the truth, right? Because everything's always going to be skewed just a little bit, or I'm going to see something in a different light than he'll see something is. But when you come back and I'm saying, like, I'm telling a story on my podcast or online, he's no longer the Raphael. He's now a third party listening in to the podcast and seeing it from a different light. And as a third party, it's never fun to hear your actions replayed because it's just very uncomfortable. And where I was going with all of this, and I know I'm spiraling because that's just me, it's very hard when you want to talk about real life, raw things, especially traumas, dramas, all that stuff. It's hard to listen in and not be offended. But also being the person that's speaking on those things, it's very hard to walk on eggshells and be respectful and be it's actually not really hard to be to be respectful. It's easy to be respectful, but it's hard because you just never know how people are going to view it, especially when you're talking about someone else, you know? So last week I kind of touched on a couple of things and just said that I took a step back from my family. I meant nothing with any harm. I even said that in the episode. I said, there's no malicious intent. There's no ill intent. There is no disrespect. It's just that right now I need to take a step back. And of course, that was the wrong thing to say. I've already been called out for saying that. But I'm just warning now, I'm going to tell my side of the story for a lot of different things. That doesn't mean that, I don't know, it's just life. People go through things. And back to nobody's perfect. No family is perfect. And that's why I wanted to talk about so much stuff is it's like nobody gets online and posts, oh yeah, well, some people do. Nobody gets online and posts the bad stuff. They always post the highlights. Basically, everyone's social media is their highlight reel. It's look at my life in the best light possible because you don't want to see its deepest, darkest secrets. Oh my goodness gracious. But I think it's really important because even like the day my dad died, I did not know what grief would even feel like. I had never had another loss, much less such a detrimental one in my heart. So I didn't know how to even react. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to think. I didn't know how to talk. I didn't know how to cry. I didn't know how to smile. I didn't know how to do so many things. And I looked around at the community that was outpouring love time and time again to me. And these are strangers. And they're like, I've been through this. This has happened to me. This is how the next few weeks is going to go. Like in your mind and in your heart and in your world. Like it's just you just got uprooted. So many strangers were telling me how things were going to go. And it made me realize, I've said this before, it made me realize how many people are out there that relate to you, whether you believe it or not. But if I would not have shared my grief journey and if I would not have said, hey, I'm really struggling right now with being around my grandma. My grandma's 95 and she's still alive. I had no hate towards her, but I just had hate towards the situation, which was making me struggle being around her because I really just was confused by my dad was dead, but my grandma's 95 and still kicking. Like, why? Right? And I posted that online and some people were like, oh my God, how dare you even think that? Of course she would change shoes with him if she could. And I was like, that wasn't the point. I'm understanding of that. My grandma in a heartbeat would switch roles if she could, right? But that's not reality. But what is reality is I'm struggling with these feelings towards an innocent woman who I love dearly, who's really one of the only last people on this earth that knew my dad, loved my dad, and was really a huge part of my dad. My dad was her son. Like that's someone that I wasn't expecting to have these feelings towards. And when I shared that online, again, there's a very small percentage of people that were upset about it, but there's so many that were like, no, this is a real feeling. To this day, I'm struggling with being around my aunts or uncles who were directly related to my mom or dad or whomever they had lost. And it's just one of those things where when you share online, whether it's a positive or a negative, it does not matter. There are people that relate to you. There are people that understand and they're in your corner. But that was where at church when they had said that of like, you're not alone. And if you're having these bad thoughts or if you're having these lonely days and you're just sitting here like, when is there going to be a brighter day? You're not alone. That is, even if it's not a day and now you're looking at months of like, when is the brightness going to come back? I mean, I was really even struggling with that the last couple months of like my first few months, my dad living or dying, it was just like survival mode after survival mode. And every day I just woke up and was like, okay. The days went like this. Like they went so fast, but they also felt really slow. When I look back at 6 months, it just felt like a fever dream. It felt like a 4-day period. Like my dad feels like he's been gone for like 4 days. Because I'm like, where the hell did 6 months go? But anyways, if you're having those deep, dark thoughts or any thought, there's no thought to you is original. Literally everyone someone somewhere has been through almost the exact same situation. And that's why I want to talk about these things. No family is perfect. No relationship is perfect. Do you know how many people are like, you and Raphael are perfect? And I'm like, bestie, if only I could tell you. Like, obviously, I think we have a very great relationship. Raphael and I are extremely strong. We have a great foundation, but that does not mean we're perfect. We fight too. We have arguments. We bicker and we have arguments. You guys, I don't know what is going on today, but I'm like, I'm literally having glitches. But those are things I want to talk about on the podcast. I don't want to post a 30-second video and be like, oh yeah, my husband and I are arguing today. I actually did do that one time and the men found that video and they were mad. And I didn't even say what we were arguing about. I just said my husband and I are in an argument right now and we have not talked for a few days, which it was very minuscule conversation of like, what do you want for dinner? Okay, cool. Sounds good. See you later. Bye. Because we were trying to see who had given first and Raphael broke the ice. And it was actually really funny because Raphael was the one that broke the ice. And that was all that I said, is that my husband and I have been in an argument. We haven't really been talking and he's the one that broke the ice. And the men found it and was like, how dare you put all your information online? And I'm like, bruh, I didn't even air any dirty laundry. Like I literally was the most vague I think anyone could be. But again, the men are a little sensitive on TikTok. It's okay. But no relationship's perfect. No family's perfect. No friendship is even perfect. There's my girlfriends, shit that they do bugs me. Stuff that I do bugs them. Like, it's just life. I was actually talking to my girlfriend Savannah about this the other day of like, there are some things with every relationship, every friendship, and I'm going to say relationship just as like as a whole. I mean, my relationship with my mother, my relationship with my friends, like that's all a relationship. I think when people say relationship, they think me and Raphael or like a spouse or a partner or something like that. But every relationship has problems, right? Like I just said that. There's going to be things that someone does, but you got to decide whether or not what they do or what bothers you about them is enough to walk away, right? There's stuff that there's things that Raphael does where I'm like, that's not enough for me to walk away. Does it bother me? Absolutely. But it was never something I would walk away from. Same with like a girlfriend. There's things that girlfriends do. And I'm like, yeah, that's really annoying. It's frustrating. I don't agree. I don't see the same side, but it's not enough for me to walk away from. But if there are enough things where you're like, this is adding up, it's adding up, you can walk away. I think it's so funny because when I talk to other people, they're like, well, I hold on because the time. And obviously we've all been there where you really hold on to things and people longer than we should. Because I talked about this last week. Toxicity is toxicity. Whether it's purposeful or not, it is toxic. And if you choose to walk away, that's okay. I think as a society, we're taught that, oh, loyalty is time. And I don't think loyalty is time. I mean, I've had girlfriends for a year that I've been stronger and more connected with than a sibling even, like it is what it is. Like, but to hold on to somebody because there's so much time in between you, that's insane to me. That's insane. I mean, even like I look back at my ex-boyfriend and it was years that I spent with him and I'm like, why did I hold on for so long? Knowing the actions and the things that were being said and done and the cheating and the abuse. And it's like, why did I hold on? because I'm loyal, that I'm a Libra. I mean, like, what are you pinpointed on? Mercury is in retrograde? Like, I don't know. But it's just taught as a society, you hold on to these relationships because there's so much time into them and the energy and, oh, they've done this or this for you. And oh my gosh, don't even get me started on that. I hate that when people try to say in their defense, they're like, well, I've done this, and this. I've done everything for you. And I'm like, but you've treated me like shit. So yeah, cool. You have a long list of things you've done for me. I'm sure I could sit here and tally mine as well, but I'm not tallying what's been done. I'm not tallying, oh, you did this or this, and I did this or this. I don't give a shit. I care that I've treated you with respect. I've treated you with patience. I've treated you with kindness, and you've treated me like shit time and time again. And that's something that Raphael and I talk about a lot, of like, especially stepping away from my family. I haven't really gone into detail because of the fact, again, it is still my family. At the end of the day, whether I talk to them daily or I don't, it does not matter. They're still my family, and I want to protect that. But I was just saying in the car yesterday, I had a lunch with one of my brothers, and I have not spoken to them in a little bit. And that is so odd because my siblings and I have always been extremely close, some closer than others, but I would always consider them extremely close. I could call them for anything. I would hope that they would be able to say the same about me. But I had lunch with someone, and one of my brothers was explaining to me, he felt when I pulled away that he was now responsible for stepping up and checking in with everyone. And he said he's like, it's exhausting. And I said, sure is. Why do you think I pulled away? And when I was telling my husband, I was like, I feel bad that another brother was like, oh shit, well, if Catherine's not doing it now, someone has to do it. I'll be the one to do it. Because I didn't step away thinking, oh, someone else just needs to do this now. I stepped away thinking, I just need to save myself right now. And I didn't really realize that someone else was trying to fill those shoes and like to step up and be that check-in for everyone and that shoulder to cry on for everyone. But he then felt like he was drowning because I've been there. I felt like I was drowning. But when I was saying this to my husband, I said the thing that I struggle with is when people are nice and care about you back and love you back and are respectful to you back, and they're not just, oh, Catherine's just calling to check in with me. Nobody literally calls me to check in with me. It is so intriguing to me because I'm like, that's like, I will literally call someone and be like, how's it going? Like, how's this or this? Like, or do you need anything? And maybe it's just because over time I've built this such independence, but it's just so odd. Or I got a call from a family member and was like, I don't check in with you because I see what you do on your social media. And I was like, oh my God, you don't even want to get me started. Do you know how many things go on in the background? Social media is 1%. I wouldn't even give it a full percentage of my life. It is only on when I want it to be on. Granted, when I'm out in the world, I can't turn it off, like if I'm meeting followers or anything. So whatever, that's a rampage and I'm spiraling once again. But when I had said to my husband, I was like, because I don't remember what we were talking about or how we were talking about, but I said, it's different when you're checking in with people and they're respectful, like, or they care back. And it's like when they don't, that's when it gets exhausting. That's when it feels like a job. When you reach out and there's always a problem, or it's always they dump on you and you can't dump back. It's like, well, if it's a reciprocated event or conversation, that's different. So with my girlfriends, there's reciprocation. Like there's days where one of my girlfriends might be going through something and they call me and they trauma dump and they drama dump and it's other days. Honestly, right now, it feels like I've been the friend that's consistently dumping on them because I don't feel like I have that support in my family, which is really, really, that's where I'm like, it really struggles because especially when you lose a parent or anybody, when you go through a loss, you kind of go to the people who had that same relationship with that person that you lost. For example, say if you lose a dad, you go to your siblings or you go to your mom, you go to your aunts and uncles, you go to whomever. But that's not real. I thought that's how it went, but that's not real. At least it wasn't real for me. I kind of pulled away and I really just dumped on my girlfriends constantly. I'm constantly calling them about like, this is this and this is going on, or I can't believe this or this, or what do I say? Because I'm one of those people, I used to react so fast to so many things and it would never, ever, ever be appropriate. I would never handle things properly. And I've spoken about that way before I even took a podcast break, that I wasn't raised to communicate properly. And it sucks, but it is what it is. I just don't know how. And ever since being with my husband, he was the one that kind of showed me the way that you communicate, even your family as a whole, It's just not normal. And there is no sense of normality in any family, right? But there's some people in my family that scream, yell, fight to the death, stab you in the gut. There's some people that shut down, don't want to talk about anything. And I had a good mix of both. It was like I would fight. And then I would like shut down and walk away. So it was like there was no, like I had literally both sides. And I actually saw a TikTok and I was like, this is so me. But I didn't know how to communicate. And that was something that my husband and I, when we first even started dating, like he's such a mellow-headed guy. It's kind of funny, and I'm sure he can hear me. And I'm not boasting him, I promise. This is just really who he is. He's just a very mellow guy, and you don't really like to see him mad, like genuinely mad. I don't ever think I have. Okay, I lied. That's a story for another time. But it gets him, like you have to really pull him out of his body. Like he really, like to piss him off, it's almost impossible. Or really to even like get to his core. But that's something that I really respect in him because 99.9999, no, 100% of the time, I'm not even going to say like he doesn't give a benefit of the doubt because of who I am. So if I'm in the wrong, I'm in the wrong. And he is 110% going to be like, Kat, like you're in the wrong. Like, let's talk through this. But I respect it because that means when I am in the right, it means that I'm truly doing the right thing. And I've been really, really focusing on doing the right thing. And not because I need my husband's approval, but because I want to be a better person. And that's I would hope everyone's goal in life. But the more that things have been happening, and it's kind of comical to me because when I first got with my husband, when we were like dating, before we were even like really in a relationship and we were just like kind of hanging out, dating phase, I don't know what people call it these days. I had said like, yeah, I kind of like, my family's different and I did not tell him so many things because I didn't want to change his view and I didn't want to send him in with a sour taste in his mouth. And this is really before I knew kind of who he fully was in his stability of emotions, which is kind of funny to me because again, like I said, like it takes a lot for him to change his point of view on things. He really stays grounded and he listens to all sides. He hears everybody out respectfully. And it's kind of funny because some of the things that have been happening recently, he's on my side. And I'm like, that is so rare because normally he's not on my side. And he's always like, and that's showing me that what is going on, I truly feel way better about because I said, like, I feel good about how I'm being right now. I can't speak on who I was a year ago. I can't speak on who I was 10 years ago. I'm not that same person, and I truly believe in not changing because I think my morals and my values have kind of always stayed grounded, and I really believe that a lot of people's morals and values don't really change over time. You just have your own morals and values, and your actions about those morals and values or just life kind of alters the older you get or the different life experiences you go through. And I've spoken on this before, but like when I lost my dad right away, I said, I don't want to be who I was. Like, I don't want to be that person that picked fights or, not even that I would pick fights. It would be more, I didn't really talk about my side of stuff. I would just not say anything and then I would blow up. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I literally want to be able to sit down and have these conversations. And I've had to have some awkward, very uncomfortable conversations over the last few months of just really like explaining my side and communicating and doing it in, again, a respectful manner, but also defending myself and getting my own side out there. I think I've always just kind of like, I've never known how to feel. I didn't know how to put words with my feelings. And then when I would have feelings, I was like, I don't even know what this feeling is. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm wrong. And my husband was like, no, what you're feeling is right. Like these are, or not right, but what you're feeling is valid no matter what. Like whether it's a bad emotion or a good emotion, like they're real feelings. But it's just how do we figure out how to talk about them and get them out and vocalized. But in a way of, I was one of those people that like avoided. And then I would throw a bomb, blow the whole place up, and then look back and be like, so what, nobody sees my side still? And it's like, well, Catherine, what the fuck did you just do? Like that's not appropriate. But now I'm like, I'm trying to talk through some things. Still, I'm not perfect. Again, like that. I'm not saying like I just flipped a switch and I'm like, oh yeah, now I know how to communicate. But I'm really working on it. And I think it's kind of humorous to me because when things go awry and I talk about my feelings, people are like, oh, I can't believe Catherine's even saying these things right now. And it's like, I've actually had these feelings for 20 plus years. Like, this is not anything new. And that's where I'm talking about, like, family situations. I feel like a lot of stuff is now I'm finally speaking on, and people are like confused. And I'm like, no, I've always had these feelings. It's just I didn't know how to communicate them in a proper way. And I'm really struggling with now I'm like, I don't back down. And I think it's kind of funny. It's like, I have an opinion, I have a thought, I have a feeling. I am not going to back down off of these just because you're uncomfortable with how I feel or the actions that you've had that have made me feel this way. I can't help that. Everybody has traumas. Everybody has dramas. I say that all the time. I'm so cliche. I should put it on a shirt. I'm kidding. But it's true. I just think that we all need to talk about things that we're going through. We all need to understand that we are all humans too. Absolutely everybody. And that's another thing I've been really working on is shutting up and letting the other person talk as well, because it's not just my one side. But one thing that I don't like in my family specifically, and again, I have this trait as well. I'm not just talking about them. I am part of this family. Accountability is like 0%. And I've been really working on accountability just in my own household, because it starts with myself. And it's not even just like accountability because my husband wants me to be accountable. It's because I have to be accountable. Everybody has to. If I have a wrong action, if I said something harmful, if I said something spiteful, if I did something wrong, you have to be held accountable. It just is what it is. But at the same time, nobody's perfect. Just acknowledge that you did something wrong. And nobody in my family can do that. Not nobody, but a lot of people in my family can't do that. And they point fingers or they assume. That's another thing in my family that happens all the time. If Raphael and I sit something out, just a birthday party, we sit out a birthday party. Oh my God, this might be happening. And it's like, no, we actually just had plans with friends that we didn't realize a birthday party was happening. Like it was not purposeful, but the assumptions just get thrown so fast. And then it's like, instead of being like, oh, sorry, I assumed, again, holding themselves accountable. Sorry, I assumed, like I spiraled because of the past and things because I would sit out family events all the time. So now it's like, if I sit something out, I'm going to be honest, like I'm sitting it out because I don't want to be around you guys. Like that is what it is. Like right now I've said that blatantly. I just don't want to be around right now until we have these hard conversations, but I'm not ready for that yet. And I know they're not ready for that yet. And a lot of reasons why I'm not ready for that yet is because of the lack of accountability. I don't want to go sit in a room with these people who are just going to sit around and be like pointing fingers to everybody else. And instead of being like, you know what, I fucked up and I did this or this or wrong. And I've even like, that is such a hard pill for me to swallow of saying I'm wrong and apologizing, but I've done it and I've swallowed those pills. And I'm so ready to be able to be like, you know what, I really am sorry for certain things. When I had a conversation with a couple people recently, I did say, I'm sorry, like I am wrong for doing this. I'm wrong for the actions that I've had previously. But I'm trying to build on a new foot here, and I'm trying to get a new solid foundation. And I think that's where I don't know how you can't change the world overnight. I can't just sit down with my family and be like, you know what, I'm working on communication. You should too. Like give you a gold sticker. It doesn't work that way. And I think I had said this last time when I had said I kind of took a break from my family. There's so much pain in everybody right now. And that's due to a lot of different things. I mean, a death and grieving is such a hard thing to go through. And it'll never go away, ever. That loss is always going to be in our heart. It's literally like a big old hole is in my heart constantly. That is never going to repair itself. Time, yes, people say heals all, but I don't believe that at all. If anything, my mindset's kind of like, damn, it sucks that it's been this long without him. Like, I don't think of it as like, oh, it's been this long without him, which means I'm healing. I think of it as, damn, it's been this long without him. And I'm sure a lot of people in my family can feel that way too, or have different size holes in their heart because, again, they're mourning a different relationship. Someone might have a bigger hole in their heart than I do, and that's fine. Like, that just is what it is. But that alone, and I had said that a couple of months ago to someone in my family. I had said, what's hard right now is we have these things that we've never worked through. Even before our dad died, we haven't been able to work through these things. And now that he's gone, adding grieving into your melting pot of emotions is just like, it just overfills that pot so heavily that it's just like, it's just burned your stove. Like, you don't even know how to start cleaning it up. You don't know how to start talking or whatever. And I know I've spiraled into, I think that there's nothing that we go through in this lifetime alone. I think that it's so important to have people in your circle, but have a very solid circle. Have a circle that you know how they say, like, you want to be the dullest in the room because that means you're in a room full of people that are working on themselves or that have gotten to a point that you want to be at. I really truly believe that your circle should be, and that's not even for successes. Like, it could be successes, it could be personalities, it could be anything. Like, I have a girlfriend who I see her as like really my trauma therapist. Like, she just knows how to handle shit. Like, she gets shit done. She knows how to handle her own emotions. She knows how to be supportive without being jealous. She knows how to just, like, she's really grounded in who she is as a human. And I want that in my circle. I have a girlfriend who grinds and works so hard to be successful, independent on her own, not needing a man, not needing a family. Like, literally, not saying that not having your family is great, but whatever, sorry. She just, like, she really works extremely hard. And I feel like that's not something that's very common in this generation of, like, oh yeah, like, it's very normal for people to just be like, oh yeah, my mom and dad bought this for me, or oh yeah, I don't need to work because, I don't know, we're not gonna get started on that. They did say, I just saw this report saying Gen Z is like the hardest generation to work with, and it's because they know that, like, I mean, you make minimum wage, they're like, okay, I make minimum wage, I'm doing minimum work. Or the distractions, and I don't know, don't even get me started on the ADHD because whatever, I talk about that. But anyways, so my circle, I really try to, and I'm not saying like everybody in your circle has to have like a benefit to you. I do believe that though. I really do. And I mean that in a very non-disrespectful way, but everybody in your life should be a benefit to you, but you should also be a benefit to them. So if you're wearing them down and they're just pulling dead weight, why would they want to be friends with you? But vice versa, if you're pulling a friend just because it's loyalty, like, I'm a Libra, loyalty runs in my blood. Like, it just is what it is. Mercury is in retrograde. Anytime I bring up anything astrology, I probably sound psycho, but I'm like, no, it's very serious. Like, loyalty just naturally is in my chemical makeup. But sometimes that means I'm loyal to the wrong people and I carry around dead weight, and I did it for years and I don't want to be doing that anymore. It's exhausting. It is, my pot is already boiled over to the point where it's burned the stove. I got to figure out how to even clean the stove off. Then I got to figure out how to tone down the pot. And I can't be doing that with people that are dragging me down as well. But that can go both ways. That doesn't mean that I'm a perfect human being, and the circle that I'm in, I'm perfect, and everybody needs to see me. Like, that, I had said this last week. Sometimes your own actions could be harmful to other people, even if you didn't mean malicious intent. And that can go both ways. But I really do just believe in, like, in being able to cut ties and doing it in a respectful manner, because if you're drowning, you're drowning. It just is what it is. I feel like I have to burp. Do I? No. Raphael's listening to Sports Center and I can hear it downstairs. I can hear, what's his face? The guy that's always yelling. Stephen Anthony. Is it Stephen Anthony? And last night, LeBron James. Anyways, we're a big basketball fan. So I'm going to wrap this up. I've been talking for quite some time. I'm going to throw out on Instagram this time around, if you've listened to this episode. I've said this so many times and I'm going to reiterate it just because I want to make sure that people know what happens on this platform that I kind of want it to be. So every episode, so like right now, I just dumped on you guys. I'm like, here's my brain dump, blah. But there's so many missing pieces. There's so many things that I didn't say. There's so many stories that I didn't tie together, or I got a squirrel moment, or the camera died or overheated, whatever it was. That's normal. So there's going to be people out there that are like, wait, I have more questions. Go over to Instagram, follow on there. And then I'm going to drop a questionnaire of like, what questions did you have based on this past episode? And then part 2 of the episode will be just answering some of those questions, maybe going more in depth. If you want to share your story, if you want to say, you know what, like, thank you for sharing this because I go through the same thing. It's kind of beneficial. Even if there's one person that reaches out and is like, here's my story, and here's how my story ties into your story, and then I share it again, that means that there's more and more people realizing it's not just me that's in their corner, it's a lot of you guys. That's something I absolutely love about my comment section is the relationships that get built, even if they're just over social media, but someone will comment something and 5 people will respond and be like, oh my God, I relate heavily. And those 5 people now follow like each other. And that's what it's all about. It's about the community. It's about the relationships within the community. And I've said this since day one. I even said it again, like I could be friends with someone for a year, but that might be a more solid foundation than someone that's been friends for 10 years, right? It just is what it is. Well, that sounds really bad because I have a girlfriend who's been around for a year and another girlfriend who's been around for 10 years, and I don't want them to think that I was doing that personally to them. So, you guys, I'm sorry. I didn't mean, I just threw out numbers. I don't see you guys higher or lower than each other. Fuck. Anyways, so that's something that I really believe in, is just knowing that there's like stories about we all have our own story, and sometimes meeting friends and being friends with people in your 20s or even in your 30s and then your 40s is really hard to make new friends. And I don't ever want people to feel isolated or lonely. And when they said that at church, I'm sitting here like, that is so comical to me, because I do feel very lonely in certain settings. I feel within my family, I feel alone. Like, that's so weird. Like, when I'm in a circle of like, say my whole family's in a room, I actually feel more alone than when I do online, because I get like you find your people, you find your circle, and that's the beautiful part about social media. If you were to just share and open up a little bit, again, whether it's positive or negative, there's going to be people that flock to you. You find your circle, you find your people. And I really believe that, like, your friends become your family over time, because it's like, there's so many things that I can go to with my girlfriends that I could not even imagine calling someone in my family for. Like, they would be like, what the fuck? And I call my girlfriends and they're like, yeah, bitch, like, do your thing, 21. And it's like, it's so funny to me, because I'm like, the older you get, it's harder to build relationships, but I really do believe the relationships that we're building later in life are a lot stronger than the ones that you just get born into. And it's because you really get to cultivate and be who you truly are. I mean, I still am learning who I am. And I think that's so hard, especially in my family, of like, and I'm going to say just for myself, and this is where I really struggle. And I'm again, squirrel. I really struggle with my family because I feel like there's so many things that I don't get grace for. But I did something when I was 16. And I'm like, let it go. Like, what do you want from a 16-year-old? But then when my younger brothers were at that age, they were acting a fool, did the same shit. And it's like, oh, it was fine. Or I, even still to this day, one of the things I'm really battling with is I do not get the same grace. There is so much favoritism in this family that it is like, it's almost mind fucking blowing. Like, and I don't really need to get into detail, but I could do something and I would be like shunned. I'd be screamed at. It would just be like this whole thing. If someone else were to go follow in those exact shoes, they literally get pat on the back. And it's mind fucking blowing to me. And just recently, after like everything had happened, I had said, I don't even want to talk about this anymore. I don't give a shit. I don't even care. Like, I will never be good enough for certain people in in my family, and it just is what it is. But it is something I really struggle with, because I'm like, it just sucks, because I'm like, I let it go. Like, we're all different. Like, we're moving on, we're growing, and I don't even know where I was starting with this, but sometimes I do just want to just spill the beans, because I'm like, it is what it is. Like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes my stories are so, maybe I just need to get away from the topic, because I'm like, but it is something that's so heavy on my heart right now. So that's where I really am struggling. When I was talking to Santino earlier, my business manager, he was like, what are you talking about today? And I'm like, well, I have so much I want to talk about, but unfortunately, I'm going to get a call saying I was inappropriate, or I shouldn't be talking about our family, or what are people going to think of me? And it's like, well, I have a lot of traumas that you instilled, and I feel like a lot of people relate to these kinds of things. And I never want, that was where I was going with this. I feel very alone. I feel very alone in certain things. And it's even funny, because even some of my siblings are like, no, it's brutal. Like, you definitely are treated very differently. And even my husband, I was kind of starting to say this. I never put anything in his head. I literally sat back and I was like, I really respect him and his opinions. I want to just vibe this out. And for the last few years, he's always been the one that people call. He gets called even more than my brothers do, because he's so accountable and responsible that they just know that he's going to show up. He's going to come through. And the more shit that's happened, he's starting to be like, oh, what is going, like, okay, true colors are starting to come out. And it's comical to me, because people are now getting mad at him for being like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, I'm like, because he's one of those people that if you do something, and I think this ties into kind of his job of like, he has to hold people accountable. And that's just due to his profession, but it's also like in his degree. Like, I don't even know what, like, the kid he's insane. But he isn't uncomfortable having hard conversations. So he'll come and sit down with you and be like, hey, this just happened and it's bullshit. And people are like, oh my God, oh my God, it must be Catherine. And it's like, he's like, no, it's you. Like, it's you that, like, I've had conversations with Catherine at home. Like, she's on a track of like, we're working through stuff, but I'm now talking to you. And people are like throwing their hands up, like, holy shit, I can't believe Raphael would even say these things to me. And oh my God. And it's just so mean. And it's like, no, accountability is not mean. And it is something that I've even had to struggle with. And him and I fought a lot about, because when him and I were working on the communication and the accountability aspect of myself, I was not happy with him, because it wasn't him. It was that, holy shit, someone's actually challenging me to think differently and to change my actions, which is very hard in any aspect of life. It's very difficult. But I think it's kind of humorous to me that people have always idolized and respected Raphael. And now that Raphael's gotten a taste of everyone's true colors, he's not saying cut him off, like, let's move along. I'm like, I don't really want a relationship right now. And I think that's really uncomfortable to even say, because it's like, it is family, but it's like, I literally feel like I'm dragging weight. And I'm sure that they could say the same thing about me, vice versa, of like, Catherine's just constantly got a problem. And it's like, well, yeah, I do actually. Again, I have a lot of traumas that were instilled and I haven't worked through them. What do you want me to do about that? Like, just put a gold, like, I'm not going to, again, going full circle here, I'm not sweeping it under the rug. It's not me. I'm going to speak my piece. I'm going to tell my side. I want my voice to be heard. And that is what it is. I mean, I really hope that for everybody. I feel like everybody should be able to talk about their own issues, and to be able to communicate with the people that have hurt them. But also that means that I have to be able to sit and listen to the things that I've done too, which I agree. But when people are bringing up stuff that I'm like, I was like, bruh, like back to, I was 16. Come on. But when I was talking to Santino earlier, I was like, there's so many things that like I want to talk about, and I really just want to spill. Like, I just want to be like, duh. Like, I want to be able to brain dump and like actually tell real stories that have happened. But it's hard because people listen and they're like, I literally have already gotten a call about what I said last week. And it was a 20-minute episode just saying that I even said in that episode, I respect my family, so I'm not going to get into the nitty gritties, but I just want to defend my own side here. I got a call saying that was inappropriate. And it's like, or what are people going to think of us? I don't care. Like, your actions are your actions. Take accountability, eat your actions, and just say, you know what, I fucked up. Let's build a bridge and let's get over it, and let's build a whole new foundation and let's start over. That I'm cool with, but that's not happening. So anyways, we're literally spiraling. I did want to say, okay, so I'm going to open up the questionnaire on Instagram. I'm going to kind of I also want to do a box of like, what do you guys want to talk about? Because there's so many things I think that I've gone through in life, and I've touched on like being in an abusive relationship. I think that's something that a lot of people, I've really strayed away from talking about an abusive relationship for the simple fact of, I used to more frequently on TikTok on my old page, because I realized the community, again, there was such a community of like women and even men that were out there that have been in a really bad situation and didn't know how to get out. I still see a lot of it happening around me, where people like, or on TikTok, I see it all the time. People talk about it, and it's like, I've strayed away from talking about it because, one, I have a husband, and I don't want to even like, I don't necessarily want to go into some in-depth stories of that. Because, one, I don't think the ex-boyfriend even deserves the attention or the time, but I don't think it's about that. I think it's more about the healing from it. And now I live such a different life that if you would have told me 7 years ago when I was in that relationship, where I am today, I would not believe you. I would not believe you because, one, I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe in like I just didn't see it. And now I look around and I'm like, holy shit, there is an out, there is a way. My heart is so healed from that situation. My mind is healed, my body is healed. Like, if I were to ever see that person in public, it wouldn't be like, oh, hey, how you doing? But it's just like I don't feel like I have to run away anymore. Like, it just is what it is. But there's a lot of things that I've spoken about previously that I kind of want to start digging into, but it's really hard, again, because a lot of people, a lot of my feelings that are happening right now are present, and that's why I've been wanting to speak on them, because they're present right now. But I'm feeling as if I have to be very, very cautious, and I think that's kind of like, I don't really want to do that either, because I want to be cautious of people's feelings and time and energy and all that, but I also I don't want to just be like, oh, here's a very vague blanket statement, because that doesn't make sense, like it's just whatever. So I'm going to open that up on Instagram. What else is new? I read the book. I've actually gotten through 2 books. I know this is so super random, but I kind of wanted to throw this in at each episode. I read 2 different books recently. I've shared that on Instagram. Verity by Colleen Hoover. I've heard some things about Colleen Hoover. I don't know what's true. I've never done my own research on it, but apparently, I don't know, there was a scandal that had happened with her. So some people love her, some people hate her. To each their own. Again, I have not done my own research on it, so I probably should. But Verity was a very, very, very good book. I'm into like I'm into like mysteries and relationship, kind of suspense. So I read that one, and then the other one that I rode. Was that the other one that I rode? Oops, I just kissed the mic. It was The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. Both I gave to my mom, and she finished in like days too. They are absolutely phenomenal books. They are so, so, so good. I am now getting into the lessons in chemistry. I know that was a really popular one for some time, so now I'm getting into that. What else do I want to update you guys on? There is something coming up in my future of reaching out to the Minnesota community, so stay tuned for that. I don't want to give too many details, but if you're on Instagram, I did something yesterday where I kind of spilled a little bit of the beans, and the closer that we get to what is going to happen, I'll share more. So I'm really excited about that. Again, I've said that so many times, like it's starting small for me of just getting in with the community, and I have a huge thing of safety. Like people are like, do a meet and greet, like throw a big meet and greet, and I get very anxious of that because I'm like, my safety, maybe it's just because of like what my husband does, or I don't know, but I just get so anal, or maybe it's just because I watch too much Law and Order. Oh my gosh, I just yawned. Anyways, I'm very, very hesitant of my safety, so I'm always like, ooh, this is awkward. But I do want to throw something, but I'm kind of starting small, so I'll be doing that soon. What else is new? I recorded 2 podcast episodes that didn't work out. There was issues. And then when I finally got a 3rd podcast episode recorded, which was the first one technically, which was just last week's, I missed out on so many things that I want to tell you guys because I had said them in the first 2 and I completely forgot in the 3rd one. Whatever, we're not gonna talk about it. The jewelry line, I did start a jewelry line. It's called Beloved Collection. It's for my dad. Oh my God. I saw Kim Kardashian's interview. She had said something I find so comical is we give so much credit to the dead parent. And it's so true. You literally give so much freaking credit to your dead parents. But then the ones that are living, you're like, or the one that's living, you're just like, eh? But I started a Beloved Collection, and where I was going with that is I started a jewelry collection in honor of my dad and his legacy and blah, blah, blah. And it's been doing really well. So thank you if you've purchased anything from us. I absolutely, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to squeeze you. I appreciate you. I love that you found something within my collection that resonated with my dad, but also with your life too. But it's so funny because my brother and I were talking about, we have so many tattoos for our dad now. Like literally I've gotten 3 tattoos for my dad in the last few months, 4 actually. And, my brother and I were talking about like going and getting another one. And I was like, by the time our mom dies, like, what the fuck are we going to put on our body? We're going to be covered in Bill. So I was kind of thinking that the other day of like just being humorous of like, okay, I have a jewelry line of my dad. I have tattoos for my dad. I was like, I'm doing a lot of shit for my dad. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do when my mom goes? Like, sorry, mom. It was nice knowing you. That's a joke that I don't actually mean that. But, it's just funny because you think of like, God, what more can you do? Like, but yeah, so I'm going to wrap this episode up. I do want to just say that we are all human. You are never, ever alone. I know that sounds so cliche, and it's such a different feeling when you're feeling it and when you're sitting in your emotions. You're like, I'm so alone. Or if you say you're in a room with no one, or say you're in a room full of people, you feel alone. But that doesn't mean you're alone. I go back into, would you be friends with them if you were, like, if you actually wanted to be friends with them, or were you friends with them because they were in your 5th grade class and there was only 20 kids in the room and you chose that one kid? So sometimes it's just the room that you're in that feels lonely. Get out there, talk about your feelings, reach out to other people. I talk about this with one of my brothers all the time. He lives a very lonely, secluded life. I think he does it to himself, and it's just a lack of confidence of just going out and sitting down at a coffee shop or going to a library or going up to the bar, something. Not even like, I'm not saying like a dive bar, but like going up to a nice restaurant and sitting at the bar. There are so many relationships that you can find that way. And it might not even be like a long-term relationship, but sometimes I really believe this, being the vessel here on earth, and when you put things out into the universe, you get them back. So if you're putting out negativity, yeah, sure, you're going to get it back. But if you're putting out positivity, or even if you're just sitting down at a bar, just sitting here saying like, and I say a bar because it's just so easy. But say you're sitting at the bar by yourself, you're just sitting there eating your appetizer. Is that lonely? 110%. But if you are open and you're putting out to the universe that you are open, somebody will sit next to you. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. And then you start to have that conversation. God put that person or the universe, whomever you believe in, put that person next to you for a reason. I believe that whole freaking heartedly. If you're going through something, you're never alone. But if you do feel lonely, open up what you're putting out there. Open your mind. Go do something out of the norm. I talked to another girlfriend about this a lot. She's been going through a lot of mental struggles and just like feeling she's got a lot of people in her circle, but just feeling really alone because the people in her circle haven't been through what she's been through. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that the people in her circle are not supportive. It just means that she doesn't feel supported because they just don't understand. They can't relate. And that's okay. But she needs to then branch out with an open mind of finding her new people and talking about it. And sometimes, again, it could just be sharing on social media or and just waiting for the comments to roll in, or going to the bar, going to the library, going to a group, I don't know, anything. But remember, we are all lonely in different ways. We all have our own struggles. We are all humans too. Give yourself some grace. I say that all the time. But we will chat on Instagram, and then I will see you for next week's episode. Goodbye.